We'll begin tonight with the election campaign in Ontario. It is set to kick off tomorrow. Premier Doug Ford met with the Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Dowdeswell this afternoon to ask that she dissolve the provincial parliament for an election on June 2nd. To be clear, the parties have already been unofficially campaigning for weeks now, with both the NDP and Liberals having already released their campaign platforms. Rob Benzie is Queen's Park Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. He's with me now. Rob Benzie, good to see you again. Let's start with the key ballot box question for Ontario voters. Do we know what that is yet?
You know what, Peter? It still remains to be seen. I think if Conservative leader Doug Ford would like it to be about building the economy up and building after the pandemic, I think that the New Democratic leader, Andrea Horwath, and the Liberal leader, Stephen Del Duca, and the Green leader, Mike Schreiner, would like to talk a little bit more about the pandemic and Ford's performance during that 2-year health crisis that is still ongoing. It's not over yet, although I think the public certainly seems to have moved on to other issues. So I think the affordability crisis that a lot of Ontarians are feeling, with gasoline at $2 a liter almost and grocery prices going up, those are things that all the political leaders are going to have to tackle in some way. Okay, so do you expect, what kind of a role do you expect the pandemic to play and pandemic management to play as we, sort of get into the campaign? Well, I mean, Ford had his stumbles for sure over the 2-year pandemic, but he can argue. I don't think he'll argue this, but he could if he so chose. He can argue that Ontario had a better pandemic than Quebec, which had more deaths. Even though Ontario has a much bigger population. Quebec has 57% of the population of Ontario, and it's had 15,000 deaths. Ontario has had 13,000 deaths. It's a lot over 2 years, but it's been better here than there. It's been better here per capita than in Manitoba. It's been better than in New York or Michigan. So by those metrics, if you look at Ontario versus its neighbors, it's done well. The problem for the Premier is that how is it done? The other parties can say, yeah, it could have been even better, though. We had lockdowns when maybe we shouldn't have, or we ended lockdowns too soon, right, or our kids were out of school in Ontario in learning virtually longer than any other jurisdiction in North America, Peter. It's quite extraordinary, really, right, how cautious Ford was. And then at other times, last April, for example, a year and a month ago, they opened up too quickly, and then it bit them on the behind. Doug Ford's made it clear he wants to talk about the economy, he wants to talk about rebuilding Ontario, about investments and so on. The Liberals and New Democrats, the official opposition, have already released their platforms. What are the key offerings from those two parties as an alternative to Doug Ford and the Progressive Conservatives? Well, I mean, in fairness, the Liberals haven't released their whole platform yet. They've released a few. The New Democrats have put out their platform, 100-plus page booklet, and the Tory platform came in the form of the budget last Thursday, a $198.6 billion spending plan with an almost $20 billion deficit, Peter, that's higher than it was last year. So that's quite extraordinary. I don't want to cast aspersions on inebriated nautical folk, but the Tories are spending like drunken sailor. You could argue that. That said, the Liberals have some big ticket promises. They haven't put their whole platform out, but they're promising buck a ride for transit that they say would cost $1 billion when maxed out. But I think it would be actually more than that. If you look at in OC Transpo in Ottawa, it's $3.70 a ride. That would be $1 a ride. Here in Toronto, the TTC, which is $3.25, would be $1. A GO train ride in the suburbs of Toronto, that can be as much as $20, could be $1. So that's a huge amount of subsidies. But Del Duca says he wants to get people back on transit. It helps get cars off the road for gridlock, for greenhouse gas emissions, and also is an affordability issue at a time when people are feeling the pinch. What's at stake here for Andrea Horwath? Well, Peter, this is her fourth kick at the can. It's like that Bob Dylan song, Fourth Time Around, from Blonde on Blonde, which I was listening to this morning as I walked into work, coincidentally. And I think if she doesn't win outright, I think she can't stay on as leader, and I don't know if she'd want to. She's been the leader of this party since 2009, since you and I were teenagers, Peter, and she's brought them to where they are now, the cusp of power. When she took over, they had, I think, 12 seats or 10 seats. Now they have 40. She took them from 20 to 40 in the last election in 2018. Now, can she get them over the hump to 63 plus for a majority. That remains to be seen.
All right, let's quickly finish on this. What do the polls tell us as the campaign gets underway?
Well, according to the Signal, which is the poll tracker the Star uses, the Tories would win another majority government, slim majority, but they would win 68 seats in the 124-member House. The Liberals, the Signal says, are in second, and the New Democrats in third, and the Greens holding their own with one seat. Mike Schreiner in Guelph would be the one that they would win, according to our poll aggregator. But remember, Peter, there's a flurry of polls expected tomorrow, so those numbers are going to change. And I mean, the campaigns matter. It's a cliche, I know, but lots of things are going to happen over the next month, and that none of the campaigns can foresee.
All right, Rob Benzie, great to get your perspective as the campaign gets underway, and I know we'll get a chance to talk during the campaign. Take care.
You too, Peter. Take care.